Talks Box. It's time for our podcast.
It's Friday then. It's Saturday, Sunday. What?
You're listening to the Pitwall Girls Podcast, hosted by Darlene and Adriana. Hi, Adriana.
Hi, Darlene.
We're back after our summer break. We are in 2 races after the Dutch Grand Prix in Monza. This is our first episode back. We kind of just been living in the moment. We had Adriana's bachelorette, which was over Monza weekend, and we had a day in Monza. We did a pool party.
We've had our own summer break.
Yeah. Adriana was happy. Carlos was on the podium.
Yeah, that made the weekend for sure.
Today we have a little bit of a different episode. We have a very exciting guest with us, Mikaela of She Loves Formula One with us today. Mikaela is a content creator. She's huge on TikTok. She has a massive community around coining terms, driver's effects, and she hosts a very important competition known as Thirsty Thursdays. So without further ado, we have Mikaela. Hi.
Hello.
Hello, girls. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here and to chat all of the different things, F1 and beyond.
Of course.
No, and thanks for being here as well. And I'm sure you're so busy. We love your content and are really excited to show our audience a bit more about it. Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about how you got into F1?
So my F1 love affair, I guess, if you will, I grew up watching motorsport in America. So I was watching NASCAR and IndyCar thanks to my dad and my older brother. So I was pretty familiar with those series, but I had never heard about F1. And this was well before the Drive to Survive era. So it wasn't like we had TikTok or content creators or girls like this on podcasts to listen to about Formula One. So the way that I found about it was actually pretty funny. It was on a first date with a Brazilian man who took me to see the Senna documentary in theaters, not to age myself, but so he took me to see that live in theaters, which was an amazing date, except for the fact that we both cried during the movie because if you've ever seen it, it's a really wonderful film about his life and his legacy. And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, I'm crying on this date. And it's talking about Formula One. And I was just so interested in this sport that I really didn't know much about. And like a lot of people, once I started watching it and watching all of the races, I was pretty hooked immediately. I mean, I think we've all had that moment where we're like, oh my gosh, and then you instantly become obsessed with it, and there was no turning back from that point. And then fast forward, here in 2023, and now we have so many content creators and podcasts and different influencers and social media channels, and it just feels like for the first time, I'm seeing so many women talking about motorsport, and there's more and more and more every single day. And literally nothing makes me more excited than talking to other women about F1 and motorsport in general. So I just if you would have told me this 5 years ago, I would have been like, what are you talking about? And now it just feels like so normal and like we're on this really positive trajectory, which is really, really exciting to be here on a Wednesday night chatting about F1. Like, that's just so exciting. It's so cool to me. So what a crazy thing life is.
Yeah, thank you for sharing all that. I love that story on a first date. Who would have thought, like, fast forward and now you're here. But that's funny because I didn't know about F1 either, but I almost once went to a race just because Taylor Swift was going to perform. And I told I know you were there, so I want to know a little bit about that. But yeah, I was like, Formula One, I told one of my friends, we should just buy tickets. We'll see Taylor. We don't have to go see cars racing around. But I feel like if I would have gone to that 2016, like my life would have been so different now. Like I would have been hooked instantly because when I started watching the races, like I love this regardless of Drive to Survive.
Yeah, and I know when we started talking about like maybe creating a podcast, we're like, oh, there's no one who has something like this. Like we're like the smartest people for thinking about this. Like it's gonna be so unique. And then we saw like there's like a million others, which is exciting and cool that like so many people are talking about
it's a very supportive space, I think.
And like I think each podcast is unique and you have your own perspectives and your own backgrounds and your own way of looking at things. And I think that's what's so exciting about what we're seeing right now in this space is that so many people are talking about it. And even though it can feel like daunting and saturated in terms of like it's kind of blown up. I really think it's exciting just to see all these new faces and new perspectives and new ways of talking about the sport. And no one is better than the other, in my opinion. I think there's room for everyone here. And it really is, to your point, like it's such a supportive fangirl community. Like it's just, I feel like everyone's just like, there's no better hype person than people like strangers on the internet, you know?
Yes.
And then when you meet and then when you meet them in person at a race, it's just like it's so amazing. I'm so instant BFFs, and like I'm so excited for the race of the Circuit of the Americas next month, and they're doing friendship bracelets, and I literally cannot wait. It's going to be like the Super Bowl.
Oh my God, I did not know I might actually be going to the race, so now I need to make bracelets.
Now you have to make bracelets.
Yeah, it's super last minute, but I think that
oh my God. I have like so many that it's crazy.
Hopefully we can trade bracelets.
We have to. It's gonna be so much fun. It's like the fangirlification of F1 that's happening is everything that I dreamed of and more. And I'm sure that like Taylor Swift probably never realized in 2016 that she's been a trendsetter her entire life. Like it was just the writing on the wall, I think.
Yeah. Oh, I wish she would perform again at a race.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. I would like. That would be insane. I can't imagine what that would be like. But that actually would probably make me evaporate into oblivion. Those are my two
true favorite things
of all time, for sure.
We have a little bit of a dilemma. Taylor's performing in Miami next year, the same weekend as the Austin race. So we're like, this is a big crossroads.
Yeah, I really want to go next year. That's like the one I'm really aiming for. But then like, the chance to see Taylor again.
It's not.
How do you decide?
It's not an easy choice.
How do you decide? But the good news is that there are other concert dates and there are other races. So whichever one that you do, that you can always kind of counterbalance it by going to a different city. So that's me trying to play devil's advocate.
Yeah, and I keep saying I need to go to a race next year because I need to see Carlos and Charles pairing one more time. I need to.
That's leading to our speculation of Carlos will not be at Ferrari.
Oh, yes. There has been, I mean, there's so many silly season rumors that I just feel like silly season is no longer a season. It's just like, it's just a never ending era that we're in. So we'll see what happens. I'm personally just very much in shock that Carlos doesn't use conditioner. That's what I've just been.
He was so proud of it too.
He was.
Yeah, so this kind of a perfect segue that you mentioned Carlos and conditioner. So I did see that video of Carlos saying he doesn't use conditioner. And all I was thinking of was Mikaela saying Carlos Sainz's hair is the eighth wonder of the world. And I feel like he knows that. He was so like proud of his hair conditioner, like not using it. He's like, my routine is just shampooing it once. Like he seems so proud about that. So we had asked you if you could come on today and talk to us a little bit about the driver's effects. That's personally how I found you. I actually remember the first video I saw of you, and at that moment I just saw it and I didn't think anything of it, but it was like one French driver turned his hat backwards and started a revolution, and like that song just replays in my head. So would you be able to tell us a little bit about the first effect that you thought of and like how it became a thing, because there's so many now?
There are so many. I was looking at my iPhone's notes app this morning, and I was like, there's literally an effect for every driver, and I don't know how my brain has quite came up with that, but basically, I was just so fascinated with Pierre Gasly and his era of the backwards hat. So I started calling it the Pierre effect, much to Lando Norris's, let's say he's not the biggest fan of that terminology from what we've seen, but I just thought that he was such a trendsetter, and it played into the fact that he's an Aquarius. So I started calling it the Pierre effect. And I just decided to kind of splice up videos of different drivers with their hats facing forward and then switching to their hats facing backwards, which is just a phenomenon for, I think what a lot of women can agree with is they see a man with his hat forwards and then he turns his hat backwards and it's like, something has happened. Something has happened. It has an effect on us. And so I just decided to call it the Pierre effect. And for whatever reason, that really stuck with a lot of people. Even Pierre himself, liked my post on Instagram talking about the Pierre effect. And that just made me laugh. Yes. I mean, he's very much online, as I think all of these drivers are. Even Carlos in his most recent interview said that if drivers say like they haven't seen those videos, they're lying, which I would say that's probably accurate. Like there's just too many videos that people are making about them these days for them to ignore, the public opinion, let's say. But I can't say that the driver's effect was like this mastermind Taylor Swift plan. It was just something that I came up with that was like funny on TikTok and people just started rolling with it. So I came up with like the Charles effect, which is his wink. So he would be like winking on podiums and making people lose their minds, right? So then I would just start talking about it when we would see him on the podium last season. And so stuff like that would just start catching on really quickly. And I think it's just a fun way to kind of like coin a term that feels a little bit like an inside joke between our community. And I think that's what makes communities really fun, is when you have like this terminology and this language and these inside jokes that feels like you're just talking with your best friends in a group chat. And like, I really try to make that what She Loves F1 is all about, like this really fun, safe community where you feel like you can really unapologetically be yourself and be accepted to talk about motorsport and F1 however you want, because so often as fangirls, we're looked at really negatively for being excited about sports and talking about it differently. And I really wanted to embrace the fact that I think people can be fans in so many different ways and no one is better than the other. And I was just really tired of women having to prove themselves as fans. So, the tried and true, like, oh, you only watch F1 because you think the drivers are hot kind of sentiment. And it's like, well, what if that is the only reason that someone watched? Like, why does that affect you personally? Or
what? Like they are on TV for a reason. Like they
get so stressed about that.
Yeah.
Or like, what if you think someone is attractive and you love the technology and you want to become an engineer? Or what if you're not even attracted to men? I mean, there's so many different things, and I just feel like fangirls have been looked at so negatively, despite we're always on the forward in terms of creating trends and driving trends. And I think we've seen that so much within this content space of women being really excited about talking about F1. And now we're seeing teams really start to reflect that back in the content at us. I mean, we've seen the kind of content that Ferrari is putting out there, and Mercedes is putting out Toto kind of thirst traps every now and then. I mean, it's so interesting to see like this evolution of content that in many ways, a lot of fangirls have been the driving force behind that. And so I think it's really exciting to create this space where we really just feel welcomed and empowered to show up as ourselves and be, not have to be looked down at as for being excited about something.
No, yeah, for sure. And I feel like I need to thank you for the space that you have created, because when I first started to create content, I was a little bit nervous of how people were going to react, because there is that, like, you only think the drivers are attractive, which, yes, they are attractive, but there's so many other things about them. And then I kind of found your content and you were so unapologetic about it and so excited how you would make it. So in a way, you're like mother is mothering also for me.
You really are a big inspiration.
Oh.
Yeah. And
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was
Nothing makes me more happy than inspiring people to make their own content and for them to show up however they want and to be unapologetically themselves. Like that truly is the goal for me, because we are all fans in our own right, and we can all talk about sports however we want, of course, as long as we're being respectful of the sport and the drivers and of each other. And beyond that, like we all have different backgrounds, we have different opinions, we have different ways of saying things. And I hope that people learn that just because someone says something differently than you or talks about something differently than you, it can definitely not be the kind of content that you like, and that's totally fine, but it doesn't mean that it's bad or it's wrong. And hopefully the community can kind of begin to understand that there's, you know, room for all of us here. And I really hope that we can kind of keep moving in that direction where we see people feeling empowered to show up however they want.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. And what you said is so true about how the teams are like picking up on these things, and like it just shows the power of it. Like it's a trend, and people pick up on trends, and now the teams are implementing these things, the drivers. It's just like a one big community. So I think like people like you definitely have created that platform.
You know what I also think is interesting? Like we're seeing drivers use those fun TikTok filters and doing things that are a lot more silly and lighthearted, and kind of like humanizing them a little bit. And there were so many fangirls that got so much hate for kind of the personalization and humanization of these drivers. And now the teams themselves are doing it. So I just think that's another really interesting example to see of the influence of people like yourselves, like me, and so many other amazing female content creators that are in this space that are talking about the sport literally every single day and keeping people engaged and bringing new eyes to the sport. And I think there's just something so exciting and so much to be said for that. So it's just really cool to be a part of and just to witness and keep, you know, inspiring everyone and welcoming them all with open arms. It's just so cool.
Yeah, I think us fangirls are just as powerful as Drive to Survive for the sport.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, like TikTok and the content creators, I mean, they're like every single day people are pushing out content and talking about different things and having opinions, and their videos are reaching people that may not have ever turned on Drive to Survive or may not have ever been interested in it. And I know of so many people who have gotten into F1 from a TikTok edit, for example. So it's just like there's so many different ways to get into the sport now. And of course, Drive to Survive is definitely a big game changer for the sport, as it was intended to be. But there's so many different ways now, and the role of content creators definitely, I don't think, is going unnoticed. And if it was, I think it's going to be really hard to continue to kind of ignore it.
Yeah. Okay, that was an awesome chat actually about just like content creators in the space. Wait, Adriana, do you have any questions about the driver's effects? Do you want to know like if Alex has an effect? I just know some of her favorite drivers.
I know some of my favorite ones, like the Charles one. That one's definitely one of my faves. But what are some of like the more unknown ones, or like the ones you don't talk about as much?
I think the one that is one of my favorites that I don't talk about as much, which is one of the Max effects, is he's such a good hugger. If you've ever seen him giving hugs to people, like he looks like he gives really amazing hugs. And I think the power of like a really genuinely like happy hug, like when he hugs Lando or when he hugs Daniel, like I'm like, oh my God, like I feel like a Max hug could like change my mood if I was having a bad day. So I think the Max effect is definitely a fun one. Obviously, the Carlos effect is just being the eighth wonder of the world. He's like a Disney prince.
So good.
And then he also like looks so confused at the same time. Like when he's so spaced out, that's also a Carlos effect.
Those are really funny.
I would pay money to know what world he's in, like what is going on when he spaces out. Like he's just in Carlos La La Land.
Like the faces are just so funny.
It's really like, that is one of the most memeable things ever, is when he just like looks like he's It's either like he's computing or he's not computing anything. But I just feel privileged to be a part of it and to witness it. And I just love that he just embraces like the memes of himself. Like the other drivers, I think, are beginning to like embrace their individual brands, because now we're seeing them all kind of branch out. Like Alex Albon today launched his new collection with sneakers and like keychains. I don't know if you saw that. That was very unexpected.
I hadn't seen that. The last I saw was that they were having like a meet and greet, and Lily had a bunch of friendship bracelets, but I didn't see that. Super exciting.
That's super exciting.
Yeah, they look really cool. They're like nice looking, like suede-ish sneakers, and then there's keychains, which I did not expect from Alex at all. But I'm so excited to see these drivers kind of embrace their own brands, and like their own effects. But they're going into their entrepreneur eras, and I love that for them. That's so exciting that they're able to kind of like be a driver on the track and also simultaneously start their own businesses. And I think Lando Norris is definitely a really good example of someone who's done a really good job at that.
Yeah. I follow Quadrant like religiously. I love his Quadrant stuff. They're so funny. Like the whole team is hilarious.
Yeah,
they're so smart.
Yeah.
I think what I really want to know, and I don't know if you've ever said this, but like, who's your favorite driver?
That is the number one question that I get asked, because I think it's been very intentional for She Loves F1 to like spread the love to all of the drivers, and try to be like really, obviously there's some that I talk about more than others, just because they're a little bit more active on social media, but I really try to make it something so where I'm celebrating each and every one of them, because I think that they get so much hate and so much criticism and so much toxicity online. And I really want to be someone that's just like hyping them up on the internet and trying to be a place where if you're a fan of maybe like a driver that's maybe a little bit less beloved, like a Charles Leclerc, for example, that you have someone who's equally like hyping him up. Like, for example, Zhou Guanyu, I always talk about him and his like Prada partnerships and stuff like that, because that's so exciting and that's so cool. And I think everyone deserves the love. So She Loves F1 doesn't have favorites. I would say I personally have my favorites that I root for, let's say, behind the scenes. I think everyone knows that I've been a Daniel Ricciardo fan for a very, very long time. So I would say Daniel Ricciardo is very close to my own heart, but She Loves F1 is definitely tries to spread the love to all of them and kind of sees all of the strengths of all the drivers and hopefully hypes them up in their comment section with fire emojis or whatever the case may be. So that's really done intentionally for people not to know who my favorite is.
I think you.
Yeah. Daniel was the catalyst into the sport for us as well. But I feel like after we started the podcast, we tried to not be as like, I love Lando and I love Carlos, because at one point, Adrian and I talked and we're like, this is not a Carlando podcast. We need to talk about other drivers.
Gotta branch out.
Yeah. And it's exciting because now I'm like, oh, what is Lance up to? So like I'm going and I'm checking like everybody and not just like Lando, what's going on? Yeah.
And that's so like exciting too. I love that. It's a constant evolution of different things. But if you wanted to have a Carlando podcast, who's to say that wouldn't do well? I mean, they are a dynamic duo, that's for sure.
We love our Carlando.
That's my favorite content is Carlando.
The best content. Like we go back and we watch their videos on YouTube.
I know, from the McLaren days. Love that.
Those are like feel good videos. Like whenever you're having a bad day, those are the kind of videos that you need to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever met any drivers?
In the wild?
I have. Ooh, in the wild, ironically, when I was still living in Las Vegas, this was when Daniel Ricciardo was still at Red Bull, like way back when. I saw him, but I was working. So I was on like a site tour with one of my clients. And I'm like, is that Daniel Ricciardo? And this is all like an internal dialogue for myself. And I just remember being really upset that I couldn't like go say hello to him, but it was probably for the best because he was in Vegas with his friends. But that was like the closest encounter as far as like not being on a racetrack. This past May, when I was at the Miami Grand Prix, I got to meet Carlos, which was really exciting.
How was that?
It was amazing. He's so well spoken. His hair is even better in person, and he's just so articulate and very, very intelligent. And you can really tell that he really loves what he does and knows so much about it. And it's just like, it's so amazing to be able to listen to someone who's dedicated their entire life to be at the top of the sport. Like, I just have so much respect for what he does and for what all the other drivers do. So when you get to meet them in person, it's just a very like exciting experience to just kind of see behind like the silver screen and kind of see them. And then it can also get really overwhelming because we're seeing them being kind of like propelled into celebrity culture. And that can be really overwhelming when there's so many fans and sometimes they're not necessarily respecting personal boundaries. And I could just see like the light kind of draining from his face because people just like weren't really respecting his physical space. And that is a really hard thing to kind of witness. So hopefully we can kind of temper that, because I think if we don't, we're going to get less and less access to them, because that has to be so mentally draining, on top of being just in such a stressful sport with so much pressure. And then you have millions and millions of people, or thousands of people crowding around you. That's so much. But being able to meet them in person is obviously very an exciting experience as a fan. So hopefully the sky is the limit there. But if I were to meet Lewis Hamilton, I would probably be like the girl in the Mercedes video from a few weeks ago, where she was just like, she had gone on a hot lap and then Lewis tapped her on the shoulder and she just was like, that would be me. I would probably lose words if I was around Lewis Hamilton. I think that's the only driver that I would be, starstruck by. He has like this aura, this power, like star power about him. Every time I've seen him in person, I've never like spoken to him, but I've seen him fairly up close, and he just has like crazy star power about him. So I think that would be the one person that would make me a little bit nervous to meet in person.
Honestly, same. Like, if I were to see him strutting into the paddock with like the fits he pulls together, I'd be starstruck for sure.
So would I. Just thinking about it right now, I
can see him walking through the gates.
It's like, his vibe, you can just feel it radiating.
Mm-hmm. And I love what he's done for fashion. Like, he really has gotten so much hate for so many different things over the years, which is a completely different conversation. But now we're seeing drivers like Joe and even Yuki and all these people kind of express themselves with fashion. Even George Russell lately has been kind of surprising us with his fits and his new like Conrad Fisher era. So I just think that's so exciting. I just love that for him. And like, he's done so much for this sport on track and off track, and his legacy is something that is truly indescribable. So meeting him would be a dream for sure.
Well, I hope that happens for you.
I hope it happens for everyone, but sadly that's just not a reality.
Yeah. But to your point of like fans just like overwhelming drivers, I was in Miami this past year as well during quali when Charles crashed. I was in that section where he crashed, so I was able to see him get on the moped, but all these fans came crowding and they were like patting his helmet, and I'm like, that's so crazy to just have been in an accident and there's hundreds of people screaming your name and touching you. Like, what if you're concussed? Like, he was just sitting there not moving.
So calm. They remain so calm when they can easily just be like, don't touch me, you know what I mean?
Yeah, they're true professionals through and through, and they just being in just such high pressure, high stress situations with the margins being as slim as they are. I mean, in the wise words of Daniel Ricciardo, they are high performance athletes, but it's just being in those types of situations where you crash and then there's so many people just surrounding you and you have to continue to keep yourself composed. I mean, I can't imagine. I would like walk off the track and no one would ever see me again. So
Yeah,
they're
just
like,
hide, cry.
Yeah, just like
yeah.
don't anyone see me right now. Yeah.
It's wild to think about, but they do a great job of it. So that's why they're Formula One drivers, right? That's why they're at the pinnacle of motorsport.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Okay.
Well, we have kind of a funny question for you.
Okay.
I think Darlene mentioned that I'm getting married next year. Who do you think?
And Mikaela was a wedding planner.
Yes, which is amazing.
Past life, right?
In a past life. That's awesome. I can only imagine what that was like, because planning one is like, yikes. But who do you think would be the best plus one for Darlene if she could bring a plus one to the wedding?
If I had an F1 driver to bring, I would be bringing a plus one to your wedding.
Well, first of all, congratulations on your wedding. That's just so exciting. It is such a stressful time when you're planning a wedding and being a bride. So sending all the positive vibes to you. And it's just going to be an amazing day. And I hope that you just soak it up and enjoy it. But I think for a plus one, there's two different routes that I could go. So I have like two sets of examples. I think a really fun plus one is someone who's very effervescent, kind of like life of the party, someone that you don't really have to worry about, but they're going to like be on the dance floor and they're going to be having fun. And that's always fun at weddings. And I feel like Max and Daniel would be that type of wedding date where they would just be having a really great time. On the other hand, I think another really good quality of a plus one is someone who's really charismatic and can carry a conversation with people that you don't know. Because when you're at a wedding as a plus one, you probably don't know everyone there. And someone who's really confident and articulate. So on that aspect, I think Alex or George would be a really good plus one. They're both well dressed. They're both very charismatic, and they both seem like they could hold a conversation like during dinner with people that they haven't met or over cocktail hour. So those are my two kind of like ways that you could go, but I think either way you can't go wrong. These drivers are PR trained like crazy, so they would be fine at the wedding.
Adriana, do you accept them at your wedding?
I really like the idea of George.
So do I. Surprisingly, so do I.
I think
amazing.
Like all of those boxes. I also think he'd be on the dance floor.
He's tall. He's gonna be well dressed. He'd be
chatting it up with people, getting to know. He'd be like the table person, like the one making conversations at the table. That's a good one.
Oh yeah,
that is a great one.
He would be making like George jokes with like the moms and the dads, and like I just think he would do a great job. And he matches the aesthetic. So if there was a dress code, you know that George would definitely show up exactly according to the dress code. So as a bride, that would be a relief to you. So he's not showing up in jeans to your wedding. So I think that would be a really good choice.
I think so. He'd be a hit amongst the older crowd.
He would. I can see on your sister loving him.
Yeah, he'd be really well liked. That's really funny.
Okay.
Thanks for that.
Yeah. He hadn't crossed my mind, but I hope Carmen lends him out for Adriana's wedding.
Even if Carmen came too, like I feel like she would be amazing at weddings. Like she would be beautiful, amazing, kind. She would be talking to everyone, and that's the kind of people that you want at your wedding. It's just like very easy. They would probably bring a really thoughtful gift, and that's what you need at weddings is people who are fun and thoughtful and easygoing and life of the party. Like, that's what you want. You just want good vibes all around.
All the good vibes. Well, can you send them an invite? Carmen is Spanish. It's a Hispanic wedding.
People sometimes send out invites randomly to like brands, and then brands will send gifts. So,
oh, really?
Yeah, I've seen it happen. Like Kate Spade will always send a gift. Like you just have to send your invite to them. But let's try.
Shoot our shot. You always have to shoot your shot.
You could always send it to one of the teams and see if they do something, like even if it's just like a signed card or something. You never know. I feel like the teams are always responding to fan like mail or whatever.
That would be the best part about getting married. It would be getting a signed card from an F1 team.
It is. And planning wedding is a lot of work. So you deserve all of the gifts and everything after the fact.
Thanks. I agree.
Well, very excited.
We do have a little, and this is the last part, but we do have a little segment that we normally do around this time, or sometimes when like seats open up, is called Guess the Grid. So we know of, I believe it's 4, but please correct us if we're wrong, 4 potential open seats at the end of 2023. And we were curious on your take on, do you think they're going to be re-signed? Do you think someone new will come in? And then we have them as Williams, the 2 AlphaTauri seats, and then the 1 Alfa Romeo. What are your thoughts?
Yes. So I was reading, I think Chris Medlin published an article today that was really interesting. I haven't researched it at all. But there are rumors and speculation that for the 2 AlphaTauri seats that are open right now, that Yuki might go to Red Bull as a reserve driver, kind of like what Alex Albon had done, and kind of work closely with Max and Checo for the next season, which would therefore mean that Liam Lawson and Daniel Ricciardo would be together at AlphaTauri, which I think would be really very interesting. I obviously, as a Daniel Ricciardo fan, number one, I just want to see him back on the grid in any capacity as long as he's happy and healthy. I know that he's going to be in Singapore this weekend. He's just not doing any media. So hopefully that's a sign of positive things to come. And I think Liam has done such an incredible job being thrown into the Lion's Den. His first race, I can't think of a more difficult first weekend on the job. And for him to kind of power through that was definitely worthy of a lot of attention and respect. So I can see why Red Bull's kind of in this really interesting predicament of how they want to approach these 2 open seats, especially with the new rebranding next year. So we'll see about that. And then there's the Williams seat for Logan Sargent, which, poor Logan has just had some really tough luck lately. And some of those images, it just made me wonder if there's something that we don't know about him and the future of his seat. So hopefully that gets all figured out for him. And then for Zhou and the Alfa Romeo seat, I think he might stick with Sauber, to be honest with you. I think he's really done a really good job with Valtteri and kind of keeping the pace with him and bringing in, as we all know, F1, money is everything in F1, and he's been having so many partnerships lately with really big brands. So I think he's bringing a lot of more money in. And I just don't want to see him go from the grid. But there's so many amazing younger drivers that I also want to see have the opportunity to get into the grid too. And then you have IndyCar drivers like Alex Palou being rumored with McLaren and all of these different things. So I don't know what's happening. But ultimately, as a Daniel Ricciardo fan, I just want to see him on the grid next year. That's my one and only prediction, and it's really just me manifesting it into reality.
We'll manifest with you too. I feel like it's been a tease. We got him taken away and then he came back, and sadly he's injured, and now we won't have him for probably the next 2 races. So I hope he is on the grid for 2024. And we already talked about this, but if they do rebrand to like Hugo Boss, I feel like Daniel would be the perfect face for that brand.
Daniel's like, I think the perfect face for any brand. He's just like a PR dream, you know. He just does. I think he really gets it, and he's been a driver like a Lewis Hamilton or a Charles Leclerc that just is so PR friendly and very, very marketable. So I think whatever team he ends up on is going to be a very lucky team in terms of like the marketability of that Daniel Ricciardo. He has a very recognizable brand. So selfishly, I would love to see him back. As long as he's healthy and happy, that's what matters to me.
Agree, yeah. And I did not know about Yuki. I need to read that article as well.
Oh yeah, that was interesting.
I think that just came out. Just came out today. So I don't know if that's fact or fiction, but normally when Chris Medlin is saying something, there might be some weight to it, but we'll see what's happening. I do think that Red Bull definitely has a lot to consider because they have Max Verstappen, who's obviously been so dominant, so unstoppable, in the rocket ship that is the RB19. And then you have Checo, who's had a little bit more of a complicated season, and he has his contract for next year, but Helmut Marko obviously has made a lot of very ignorant comments about him.
We saw those comments, like what?
We're just like, what? How does
from
one equal the other? Yeah.
He just I don't understand how. I think the good thing is that all of the content creators and the social media online kind of demands accountability from an organization like Red Bull to be connected to Helmut Marko when he's saying the types of things that he's saying. And obviously he came out and made a statement after the fact, but hopefully there can be some more serious things that happen when someone says really damaging words like Helmut Marko has said on multiple different occasions. But at the end of the day, obviously, I don't think Max Verstappen is going anywhere, but I do think that Red Bull want a very competitive person in the seat next to him when they have such a great car. So we'll kind of see what happens there. They're definitely in a predicament, though, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with those two AlphaTauri seats.
Yeah, and the Lando rumors were circulating as well, which I feel like they have cooled down now, but we say where there's smoke, there's fire in F1. If you hear something, it's been whispered about. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's a hot commodity. He's a young driver. He's obviously very talented, very impressive. And to see him in a car that could, that's obviously McLaren's a little bit on the up and up now. So I'm hoping that they stay there. We could see maybe some more Lando podiums. An Oscar podium would be amazing. So hopefully we'll see that. But I know that Lando's hungry for his first win in F1, and hopefully we can see that soon, whether it's with McLaren or another team. But I don't know if Zach Brown is going to release his Lando Norris. I think that's his, golden child.
I know. I do feel like, and on Lando's side too, like that's the team he's grown up with, and I don't know. But sometimes they are ruthless and are just like, I want something new.
Oh yeah,
he needs to win. Yeah.
Oh yeah. At the end of the day, these are extremely competitive guys. Like they want to win, they want to beat each other, they want to beat their teammates, they want to, be number one, they want to get the title. So whatever they need to do to get there, but there's a lot of strategy behind that. And I'm obviously not privy to any of those conversations. And there's people who know way more than I do. So I just sit back, relax, and get my popcorn out and enjoy the show.
Enjoy the show.
It's a great show. Okay, well, we're off to Singapore this weekend, not us. I always have to correct that, like we're not actually we're not actually going, but we will be watching the race. So any podium predictions?
Well, it would be silly to think that Max wouldn't be on the podium. I saw this stat today.
In Singapore.
I saw this stat today that's really interesting, that Red Bull can actually win the constructors in Singapore.
Yeah.
If Red Bull gets P1 and P2 and Mercedes doesn't score any points.
Yeah.
Which would be it would be mind blowing, honestly, to witness that. And then you also have, they've changed the track circuit a little bit. So they removed 4 corners. So I think for cars like the Williams and McLaren that have that top line speed, I think we might be able to, maybe a little bit of Singapore magic can happen for Lando Norris and Alex Albon, Oscar Piastri. Maybe Logan Sargent can get some luck on his side finally. Because I think their cars will be really well suited with more straights. And then there were rumblings of maybe some more, like another DRS. And we know how powerful the Red Bull is when there's DRS. So if that happens, we might very well get a Red Bull 1-2. And so it will be exciting to see what happens in Singapore. It's such a physical race and it's so demanding of them. So I just can't wait to see what happens. But I think my prediction is we're going to see a Red Bull on the podium, maybe 2 Red Bulls. But Red Bull is saying that they're expecting Charles Leclerc to be very competitive, which selfishly, I too would love to see Charles Leclerc on the podium. So I would like to. Yeah, who doesn't want Charles Leclerc to be on the podium these days?
We need that link of him on the podium.
We do. We really do. So if Red Bull's going to say that in the media, I'm just going to echo what they're saying and may our Delulu become the true Lulu is my new saying.
Let's channel it.
Yes. Manifesting.
I mean, selfishly, I do want a Ferrari. I'd be happy with either. I think a Red Bull will for sure be there. And then I want like a wild card. I want there's been a lot of different podiums this year with lots of different people. I mean, Max is usually on it, but lots of different people have made a podium. And so I hope this is one of those races where it's someone who isn't normally on a podium.
Yeah, I think we'll have a surprise in Singapore. I do think that a Red Bull will be on the podium. Maybe Max will finally get his first win in winning Singapore. Maybe a McLaren. Maybe it's Oscar. And I heard Mercedes, this track might suit them as well. So maybe George or Lewis.
That would be amazing. And like when you have a surprise person on the podium, like we've had those 2 Alpine surprise podiums, and we had Esti Besti on the podium, baby, in Monaco. And then we had Pierre on the podium. I mean, it was just like those 2 podiums were so like exciting to witness because you just see like how important it is to these drivers. And obviously it's important to them, but just to see like the emotion and the physicality and how excited they are, for me, like that just makes me tear up when I'm watching them, at the podium ceremonies. Like I feel like I'm living it in real time with them. It's just so exciting to see. So whenever we have those magical moments where it's a surprise podium, I really enjoy that. So hopefully that happens this weekend.
Their radios when they finish.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm just like, I get so emotional. I'm like, I'm happy for you. Like,
I was so happy for Pierre, especially after their DNFs. Like that was much needed.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. He was so excited, and you can just hear it in his voice. And it's not just for Pierre, it's for the entire team, right? There's so many people that go into the race weekend, whether it's the engineers, the strategists, everyone who's working there. And it's like a really huge team victory that means so much to them. So I really hope that we can see something like that. Obviously, it's great for Red Bull. We're witnessing history right now, and that's something exciting to be a part of, regardless if you're a Red Bull Max fan or not. But hopefully we can see maybe Ferrari not mess up pit stops entirely in strategy, and we can get on a podium. That would be really, really amazing, selfishly.
Well, I'm excited for this weekend.
Me too. Very excited.
Me too.
Yeah. Okay, well, it is Wednesday, and I know tomorrow's Thirsty Thursday, so you probably have a very tough week because it is hot in Singapore, and the drivers have just been like posting thirst traps. So this is something I found it funny. So I posted the picture of Lando and I tagged you and I said, if this isn't P1, I don't know what is. And a guy, he was nice, respectful. He goes, oh, but that doesn't look like Max, like basically saying that only Max is winning. And I said, what did I say? I said, oh, different competition or something like that. He goes, I think Charles has a better chance of winning that competition. I'm like, are you keeping up with Thirsty Thursday? He goes, no, I just watch the races, but yeah, hopefully he wins. It was so confusing, but it was just funny because I was like, who is this guy that's following us? I don't think he knows what I was referring to. Yeah.
Well, that's so sweet of him to engage with your content. So shout out to him for being nice and respectful. But I will say Lando overtook Charles Leclerc in the Thirsty Thursday Championship standings. So
yeah,
I don't know if I agree with him.
Yeah.
And he was the People's Park Sprint champion. So I think Lando is definitely
I mean, the airplane pics.
Oh, Did you see those?
The photo shoot in the airplane bathroom.
Like, he just went into the airplane bathroom. He's like, I'm feeling myself after probably like 20 hours of flying. Let me take all these selfies.
I just think it's so funny. Like, more power to them. Everyone knows that I am very pro thirst trap, and I am always, regardless of how you identify, I am always going to hype people up in their comment sections for whatever they post online. So good for him. I certainly would not take selfies after a long haul flight, but I love that he felt empowered to do so, and he looked amazing. So good for him. I love that for Lando. We just need to ask him if he uses conditioner or not. Like, is he on the Carlos Sainz conditioner, or is he using Moroccan oil like everyone is saying? Those are the questions that we need
If they were
answers
smart, if the press conferences were smart, they would be asking these things.
Okay, wait. So I feel like Lando takes a lot of advice from Carlos. So Carlos probably told him not to use conditioner. But I have been up close and personal with Lando, and he uses a lot of gel. Like, it's very jelly.
Man,
So,
we need to do a deep dive investigation into this very important topic.
please select who uses conditioner.
Who uses conditioner and who doesn't? We need answers. Carlos has sparked a new dialogue in terms of hair care, so we are very curious to know.
I'm going to pay attention. I feel like we're going to see a change in hair all because people stopped using conditioner. The drivers are like, Carlos doesn't use it. I'm not using it anymore.
It's the Carlos effect.
This is the new Carlos effect.
No, it's kind of like Lewis's like a million step skincare routine.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, Lewis has the best skin. That's actually one of the things that sparked the podcast. We were just talking about how George and Lewis had the best skin, and we're like, do you think Mercedes has an esthetician with them? Like, instead of a team doctor, they have a team esthetician.
Ooh, I bet. Who doesn't love some good self-care and taking care of your skin? I mean, Lewis is a Capricorn. Like, he's playing the long game. I can totally see that happening. I mean, Susie Wolf. I feel like she would be like Toto. Like, let's go get a facial or something. She's like, I feel like she would definitely be into that. And Susie's a very smart lady. So I don't know. I definitely think Mercedes has the budget. All of the teams were under the cost cap this season. So facials obviously didn't put them over the edge.
We got no drama on that end.
No drama.
Well, it's probably for the best. I don't think I could go through another like online warfare like we did last season, but we'll see. There's always something dramatic that's going to happen in Formula One, so we just have to sit back and wait and see what happens on track this weekend.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this has been so great. Thank you again for coming on. I'm so glad we finally got to do this. Yes. I was like, is this ever going to happen? Like, we had to like change the dates around, but we did it.
Made it work.
Worked out.
So
lucky 13. Yeah.
It was an amazing conversation. I love chatting with you girls, and hopefully we can connect in person at a race. That is like the epitome of taking online hype girl friendships to the next levels when you're at the races.
Yes, for sure. Hopefully it will be at COTA.
Yes.
I gotta start
making bracelets. You do. Yeah. It's gonna be like Taylor Swift, but with really loud race cars, and it'll be awesome.
I got to go to the track last December for another best friend's bachelorette. We went go-karting. So I've been on the track, but obviously it wasn't F1, so I could only imagine it. Yeah.
Oh, it's like electric. The energy is everything. In Austin, I feel like the city just lights up, and I don't know. And I feel like this year there's so many people that are going to be there. So it's just going to be like, I keep saying it's like the Super Bowl, but I really mean that because there's so many people there. I really want to plan a Taylor Swift Eras night where everyone dresses in their Eras outfits. So we get like them to play Taylor Swift at bars. So I'm trying to, oh my God, you guys, everyone's invited, literally. That would be my dream. So I'm trying to figure out how to make my dream into reality. But so keep your eyes out for something like that. I think that would be the coolest thing ever.
They really would.
Awesome. So with that, where can everybody find you so they make sure not to miss out on the invite?
I am on TikTok at She Loves F1, and then on Instagram, I'm at She Loves Formula One. So whichever one, I feel like I'm talking there all the time, so you can't really miss me if you love motorsport with a little bit of spice, as I like to say. So just a little bit of a different. Yeah, if you like pop culture and Taylor Swift and The Summer I Turned Pretty and things like that, then you'll definitely probably love She Loves F1. But even if you don't love that, I like wake up at 2:30 in the morning and do live race like in my stories. So it's kind of a mixed bag of everything, but everyone's welcome at She Loves F1 as long as you're nice.
Yes.
Yay! Thank you so much.